name is Judith Brooks. I was born in Adelaide and my parents were both well-known artists. And so I was brought up in this environment of art on the walls, my mother's ceramics on shelves, and I've spent a lot of time in my father's studio, either playing or helping him with small jobs and just watching him work. So it was an interesting environment to grow up in. I actually went back to the piano and studied the piano again, but also went back to painting. And then I gradually became more serious about the painting. I did teach the piano for years, but I became more serious, the painting took over. I had my first solo exhibition in 1974, and I've been exhibiting, having solo exhibitions probably about every 3 or 4 years since then. And my last exhibition was in 2009 at the Kensington Gallery, and that was actually during Sala Week. I've been working very consistently since '74, and I've been doing the printmaking and the painting. And I had 2 exercises which I really enjoyed. One was painting visual images to South Australian poetry, and they were put on slides, and it was before the time of videos, and that got put on at the Art Gallery and also during one of the Festival of Arts, Adelaide Festival of Arts. I also did some visual images for a musical production, Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire. And that was put on during an Adelaide festival, also Barossa Music Festival, and it also went on in New Zealand. And they were big moon-shaped images that were put behind the players and the singer. Because I have a love of poetry and music, those exercises were terrific. It was good to work with other people as well. I was interested in the outback, in the landscape. That was my inspiration. I spent a lot of time out in the bush, out in those lonely landscapes, Australian landscapes. And so when I first began painting, I painted the landscape. But then I was also interested in people. So eventually the people started to go into the landscapes. And I became very interested in someone called Daisy Bates, who lived out in the outback. And so it gave me the opportunity to talk about the outback, but talk about this rather eccentric woman as well. I will always listen to what people say. I'm always interested in what they say, but in the end you have to be your own judge of your own work. And you will probably only find a few people who actually understand what you're saying and are on the same wavelength as you are. I don't think I could give up. The day I die, I will. Because it's an ongoing process and you're building and developing your work. So one painting leads to another painting. this time they don't actually, you can't see their ties, but they're a group of men, also that sense of unease. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this one yet. I was going to call it the escalator, the sort of idea of some men rising above the other men, the hierarchy, or as you could call it, the greasy pole. But and so it's a subject I like to explore, but it's partly because I really like to explore faces, and I like to paint faces. I used to do it when I was a child. I'd be always drawing faces on my school books, and so I suppose it became inevitable that I would keep painting and drawing them forever afterwards. This is another painting where the working out of composition is probably one of the most important aspects of it. To try and unify and try and get the flow from figure to figure so the eye moves around it. And a common form of composition is the sort of S or the curve. So if you like, it's coming in here and then it's swinging round. The dog is quite important as a unifying direction to push you back up to this. And so how to group these figures takes quite a long time, and get that flow through, get some sense of stability as well. If you have too much lyrical motion, it can become a little bit, you get a bit seasick, but you need some stable aspects to the composition as well. So that was another one that took me a long time to work out the figures, how they would be grouped, how the eye would move across, as well as depicting a sort of al fresco Australian outdoor scene at a cafe with the Australian light and blue sky. That was a little bit more light-hearted than many of my other paintings, which can be quite serious. So I decided to just talk about the Australian outdoor life. Inspiration is 95% perspiration. I think you have to work hard, you have to have a bit of luck, and you just have to endure and not be too influenced by fashion. Loving art, falling in love isn't some kind of ecstatic madness. It's a little bit, it's narcissistic. You are wanting to see yourself reflected in the image of the other. I think art is much more contemplative. It's something in here, very deep, and something that it requires a lot of concentration and thought and understanding to fully appreciate art, and an understanding of the history of art, I think.